let's take a look at how far we've come from our original image. Here's the original image here, and here's the image after effecting some changes. Now, after our last video, I went in and I added some effects to the image layers. And you could see that the hue, saturation, vibrance, curves, and levels also really contribute to making the image look all that much nicer. I've also gone in and cleaned up the image, and I took out the plastic seams from manufacturing, some dirty edges over here on the label, some unnecessary information, and recentered the new text, brightened up the orange rinds here to make them look a little less yellow, and then just simply cleaning up the imperfections in the bottle of the orange juice. And then when I went in and I actually created some effects. Now, we've done this before. You click on a layer, and then you click on the FX panel down here, and you can see some of the changes that I made. For example, I applied inner glow. And you can actually revisit and change effects whenever you wish. So I'm on layer 2, and I can see that I have inner glow checked off, as well as drop shadow. And I've gone in and I've made some adjustments. One nice thing about effects is when you do it to one, you can copy and paste it to the other. So I had it on layer 2, right click, copy layer style, and then layer 1, right click, and then paste the layer style. Every product, once again, is going to have a different level of need for different types of dramatic effects. So go ahead and play with that and have some fun. Another thing I want to remind you is that you want to make sure that you have your caption, that you have some design tension, and that you've thought about cropping this using the rule of thirds. So let's go ahead and create text. I'm on the type tool. I'm just going to go in and type in perhaps something like Pure Sunshine. I've chosen a font that again makes me think of a crate, perhaps a crate of oranges. I'm going to go around and have some fun with this, maybe play around with the orientation of the font, maybe play around with the size. I'm going to hold Shift key to resize. I might even play around with the layering as far as the sequence goes. And I can do this and I can create a whole bunch of really great effects and even some really great design tension by obscuring the image a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and play around with that, play around with some of the composition, go ahead and play around with different layers and see what kind of effects I can achieve. And of course, don't be afraid to experiment. Sometimes you do something and you think, oh, this might look really great, and then you realize, nope, I need to revert back to what I was doing. I can even play around with the text, and I can give the text the same layer effect that I have on my elements. Let's see what that might look like. I'm going to right click, I'm going to copy layer style, I'm going to go to Pure Sunshine, and I'm going to paste the layer style. So now I have that same effect on my text. I may or may not want to keep that, and I can play around with some of the design tension elements by having some things kind of come off the page. I may want to change the color of that font and see how that might look. I'm going to go in, maybe choose something slightly darker. I think I like that a little bit better. In any event, I've gone around and I've made some changes here to the composition to create a little bit of design tension. You want to think about how you're going to crop this image as well. Now, you can divide your document using these rulers and then kind of just create a makeshift rule of thirds. Keep in mind that you want to keep important elements at the crosshairs. So while you're building your document, think about how you're going to do that. So Pure Sunshine, perhaps I might actually try to get these words to work into that a little bit better. Now, I've made some changes that may or may not work. I might want to play with this a little bit more, but at this point, when I'm ready to save the document, I want to remember that before I upload this to Slate, I have to resize the file or it will be an enormous file to upload. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go to Image, Image Size. And whenever you are resizing an image and you take a look at it from a pixel perspective, you want to have no more than 1024 wide. So I'm going to go ahead and change this to 1024. This is going to save the document at a much more reasonable size. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. And as long as you have this lock, Photoshop will do the reconversion for you. So it's much smaller now. I'm going to go ahead and bump it up. And when I'm ready to save this to Slate, I'm going to go File, Save As. And now you need to upload two separate versions of this document. The first one you're going to call Hero, Chantal Windmuller, course, you're going to use your own name. And then I'm going to save this as a Photoshop file with layers intact. I'm going to accept the format options that are default and say OK. Then I'm going to save it again. I'm going to go File, Save As, and now I want to save this as a JPEG. Now the JPEG will allow your instructor to see the font choices that you've made, even if your instructor doesn't have that font selected. However, your instructor may wish to go into the actual file and take a look at the effects that you've chosen, as well as some of the layers that you've got here as far as the adjustments go. All right, I'm ready to click Save. And now I have the two documents. I'm going to accept the defaults. I have the two documents ready to upload to Slate. If any of you are choosing to do logos or use slogans that are already found on the internet by the actual companies, you do have to include APA referenced Word documents along with your submissions. If you decide to use just the images from the image bank, you do not need to include a reference list.